should be allowed in women's only spaces?
Women.
How would you define what a woman is?
I can't really talk about that because I'm not a woman, so I can't really give my perspective on that. So I'd rather let a woman talk about it and then see what happens.
How do you know who's a woman though?
Now I know. I don't know. I see a woman as a woman, but if some people say they're a woman, I believe you.
Hi, my name is Jess and this is Reason. Today we're in Camden asking people who should be allowed in women's toilets. Who should be allowed in the women's toilets?
Whoever identifies as a woman.
Who do you think should be allowed in women's bathrooms?
Can you repeat the question?
Who do you think should be allowed in women's toilets?
Women, I don't know.
Do you think single-sex spaces are important?
I think that's a difficult question because I think that, identities, I think that in a world where we're trying to decide whether or not sex is binary and whether or not people can have multiple identities, I think it's difficult to have a singular discussion that's also, can we separate women and men when we're already discussing, is there women and men? Is there a gradient between them? So I think it's more a question of necessity. I don't think that women-only carriages are necessarily... I think there should be a safe space in train carriages where maybe there's a conductor there or always somebody there that is essentially gender neutral. I think anyone can come in there if they're feeling threatened and then they can just have somebody there that can keep them safe, I think a supervised space.
What do you think the point of single-sex spaces like toilets, changing rooms, prisons, how it's men and women?
People feeling more comfortable and safer in the environment.
Gender neutral places. They feel more comfortable in expressing their sexuality, and for example, for non-binary people, they don't label as man or woman, so they're more comfortable in gender neutral spaces.
What do you think about prisons or toilets or changing rooms that are separated between men and women?
I think that it's more of an issue than people make it out to be. No, less of an issue, actually. Correct, less of an issue. I think that it's not as important because I think people kind of have this... When they talk about people, there's a logical fallacy that's this, and I don't know what it's called, but it's when no, I'm not going to be able to... I'm going to say it wrong. But it's kind of like when you take some example and you say this is bad because hypothetically this and this would happen. People say that they're hypothetically a man pretends to dress as a woman, comes in, does all these terrible things in the changing rooms, but that's not a necessity of creating gender neutral spaces. That's not something that necessarily will happen, and I think that's a bad argument against it.
What's the definition of a woman?
I don't think you want to be, really. If you define as a woman, you can be a woman. If you're born a woman, you're born a woman. A woman is what you choose. That's it, I mean.
Well, yes, it's similar. You may identify as a woman, and you can if you want to. It's just open.
It's like gender.
It's very, very open now, yeah.
Gender is it's a very broad thing now. It's not defined by your chromosomes. Sex is defined by your chromosomes, obviously, but gender itself is who you want to be.
What do you think about the women who feel threatened or that their safety is at risk by allowing anyone who identifies as a woman into women-only spaces?
I think that there should be safe spaces, but I don't think necessarily that we should. I think 100% we shouldn't stop people who. I think 100% we shouldn't stop trans women from going into women-only spaces. I think that crosses a line.
What does it mean to identify as a woman?
I'm not sure. I feel that's subjective. Depends on the person.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.